All right, so I think we are live now. So what's going to happen now? I'm going to read questions from our community for you, inshallah. And I don't need you to worry about anything. Just presenting the whole speech, the whole webinar subject to the rest. And I think we're live now. Yes. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to introduce our lovely guest, Kathleen, who is one of those amazing women in our community, aren't you? She. I promise I won't. I will not embarrass you, but I'll try my best. So Kathleen, she's absolutely amazing in her approach to leaving legacy behind. She's very passionate in what she's doing. She's a teacher by her qualifications. She left the profession to do what she believes she's meant to be. So she became a coach. She became a mentor. Starting with parenting by connection, then studying Islamic pedagogy, but now she's at this stage, a very blessed stage, when she is a founder of a movement. It's no longer academy, it's a movement, back to Fitra movement. We're going to talk about this movement. We're going to talk about freebies from this movement at the end of our webinar. Please stay tuned. I don't think I gave it justice to you, Sister Karina. Please add more. What else do you think you want our community to know you by?
Well, I think more than knowing me, it's more not, because you mentioned it's a movement and you said back to the Fitra, and maybe it's a good idea to explain what that actually means and why I called it that. Because we were born on the Fitra, so we were born in that pure state of faith, but we were also, if you look at young children or young babies, we were also born resilient and confident and patient and all of these beautiful characteristics that now as adults we seem to be struggling to attain. And one of the things that I discovered through my journey was that those things are all still there. They're still within us, and it was just stripping away what was in the way of that to reveal it. And so that took us back to our Fitra, and that's where the name came from. And so that's what this movement's all about, is helping our Muslims across the globe, children and adults, get back to their Fitra.
So Fitra, for all of you who are watching and you're not too sure, the definition of Fitra, well, my definition of Fitra, that's where I am, is a place in you which is innate place in you, in yourself, which is given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And which enables you to constantly look for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it doesn't matter whether you are born in the culture or religion of being Muslim or not. As a human being, by default, we believe that you are giving a chance to live here, to find your ways towards God. Would you add anything else to that, sister?
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's our innate state that we were born with, and yeah, pointing us towards Allah is a very good way of putting it, because that's kind of how we put it too. Like it's an inner compass that we've got, and a lot of people's compasses are a bit out of tune or even broken a bit, and so we're fixing the compasses.
Yeah, I love it. And how do you think, because it sounds like it's a core of your practice, it sounds like it's a core of your philosophy to work with Muslim community, and I just wonder, how is that going to reflect the subject of our talk today? Because we are talking about wellness and self-responsibility in Quran, in Sunnah, and traditions of our pious predecessors. So I just wonder how is that can reflect the subject of our webinar.
So I love the fact that it's about wellness and self-accountability, because there's no knight in shining armor coming along to rescue us so that we have good health, so that we have good emotional strength, so that we have, good connection with Allah. It's our responsibility to look after all of those things. And one of the things, because I guess our area is mostly to do with emotions and teaching people about their feelings, because that tends to be the thing that gets in the way. And we tend to justify not looking after ourselves because we feel bad, or we don't feel like we deserve it, or someone wronged us, and so it's kind of like we get angry inside, and to spite them we don't look after ourselves. It's totally illogical, by the way, all of it. And so what we do is, in fact, teach what we call the inside out paradigm, which is a subtractive psychological paradigm. So it takes thinking off our minds. That's why we call it subtractive psychology, because it takes stuff off our minds, so that our minds are nice and clear, so that we can have a nice, clear connection with Allah, so that we can always be striving towards what is best. And what is best includes looking after ourselves, because we're going to be accountable for that. Allah gave us this body as our vehicle for this life. And of course, at the end of this life, we'll have a different experience. We've got this one soul that's forever, and we've got to look after that too. Otherwise we might end up somewhere we might not like later on. And and so I deal with the emotional element that interferes with all of that.
And I particularly like the fact that you are concentrating on self-responsibility from the perspective of being accountable. If anything, in those three beautiful monotheistic faiths, we are being taught over and over again, you're going to meet your Lord again. There will be a day of judgment. And obviously all those different religions, Christianity, Judaism and Islam, they will interpret it differently. I come across in my research of two practices really, which are probably more alive in Sufism than in Sunnah and Quran based, like Ahl Sunnah Jamaat branches of Islam, but nevertheless they are deeply explored from therapeutic point of view right now in researchers. And those two practices that I'm talking about is, first of all, muhasaba. Muhasaba is the practice of taking yourself into self-accountability before you are being taken into accountability. It's that self-examination, self-criticism, if you like, or policing yourself on a daily basis. What's advised in that practice is to sit down with yourself in the end of the day and actually, monitor what have happened in your day. How did you react it? How did you felt about it? Developing that inner judge in you. We call it in counseling, in psychotherapy, your inner counselor. Being very present in everything that you do is difficult. So this muhasaba practice, in the end of the day, when you sit down, I don't know, with your pen and paper maybe, and you're taking yourself into accountability, will take you to reach that stage of ihsan, isn't it? What would be that ihsan? That ihsan is seeing him as he is in front of you. If you don't, then at least imagine it, that God is watching every step of yours. And why is it important? Because there will be accountability. There will be a day which is referred in Quran. I don't know, let me just quote one of the verses. On the day will men proceed in the group, sorted out to be shown their deeds. Then shall anyone who has done an atom weight of good see it, and anyone who has done an atom of evil, he will see it. And you will find this quotation in Surah 99, and so forth and so forth. I don't know if you came across this concept of taking yourself into accountability, whether in Quran, whether in Sunnah, whether it's already implemented in your movement, academy, Back to Fitra Academy. I don't know how would that sit with you where you are right now as a practitioner?
So the first thing I would say was, I don't tend to get into all the groups and who says what, because that was actually one of the first pieces of advice I was given when I became a Muslim, was just look at Islam, don't look at the people, right? And well, as in the people now. So when I have studied about the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and the Prophet ﷺ himself, they did do reflection. The Prophet ﷺ would go and sit in the cave and reflect, and Umar radiallahu anhu would say, you know, let's take account before we're taken account of. Muad ibn Jabal, when they were traveling, would stop and say, let's stop and reflect a while. So we have these people who are very important people in our understanding of our deen, showing us the way. So I like to keep everything very simple and not get into all the politics of anything, and just go right back to the roots. So I see that reflection and accountability is definitely a part of our deen, and we can't escape it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the Quran is always asking us to think. He's always asking us questions. He's always getting us to reflect if we're actually reading the Quran, right? So when it comes to Quranic verses, the ones that we tend to focus on in our work aren't necessarily linked to accountability, but I will share how it comes back to accountability. So the verses that are my favorite ones to quote throughout my work is, firstly, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest, which is why my core program is called Peaceful Hearts, because it's all about getting to the point of having a peaceful heart. And what I'm teaching there is the peaceful heart comes when we're looking at life through the lens of, what am I meant to be doing to please Allah right now? And so that is a kind of a form of accountability, asking ourselves that question. And that's where you get the peaceful heart, because when you're only reflecting on what does Allah expect of me right now, all the chatter in our head about what all the people think and all this and that and all the doubts fall away, and it's actually quite a peaceful place to be. The other quote that we use is, Allah never burdens a soul beyond that it can bear. And the way we see that means that we are actually always okay. Sometimes it may not seem like we are, but we actually are, because Allah has promised He will never burden us with more than we can bear. So that means that no matter what's happened, whatever's going on now, whatever's going to happen, we're always going to be okay. And so that means that whatever happened in the past, it was meant to happen, so we were okay. It means that we don't have to worry about the future, because whatever it is, we're going to be able to manage it. Allah's promised us that. So it means we can be here right now, just focusing on the question of, what am I meant to be doing to please Allah right now? It gets everything quite simple. That's why it's like a subtractive psychology, because a lot of thinking falls away when you're not focusing on all of these things. The accountability part comes in when I start explaining to people how, if we're not living in this state of being in this present moment and conscious and aware of whether we're pleasing Allah in this moment, is that we end up, whether we mean to or not, harming others. Because, and I'll give you an example for what I mean. Parenting, because I do a lot of work in parenting and I'm known for my parenting. I'll give a parenting example. A child is, perhaps we see our child hitting another child. This child's little. We're talking about, let's say, a 4 or 5-year-old, a young child, right? Hits another child. And suddenly in our mind, we go back to the past where someone in the family or a friend or someone like that who may be an aggressive person, and we think, wow, our son is turning out just like this person now. Our head goes to the future and we go, he's turning into this violent, aggressive person. And then we come down to the hard on this child in a very stressful way that's scary for the child, because we've now had this futuristic picture of how this child's turning out. That is oppression of that child, because in that moment, that child is being a child. They're not an oppressor. They're not this person that we've pictured, but they're being treated like that by us. So we're not seeing how our own feelings and our own thinking is actually influencing us to behave in a way that's oppressing others, that's harming others. And we're going to come to account for that on the day of judgment, because oppression is something that Allah forbade himself before he forbade even us. And so it starts with us. And so I say to them, the way we end that is by ending our own internalized oppression, and we start with that first. So we start on ourselves first. We have to get ourselves to a place of emotional and spiritual well-being, so that we can then actually, when we see a person in front of us, see them as the human being they are in front of us, rather than the problem or anything else that we're seeing. See them as the human being, and then all the judgment falls away, and the love and compassion comes forward, and we're able to think clearly about what is the solution. So if we go back to that child, the solution is to come in firmly being as a firm tone of voice, but very calmly, confidently, and compassionately. They're my 3 C's: calm, confident, and compassion when it comes to parenting. And stop the child in that, stop them and tell them that's not okay. And then stay with them to help them through whatever is going on with them, so they're back on track instead of freaking out. So we're often behaving, well, I think a lot of the world, it's just not just the Muslim world, is just operating on autopilot. They're not actually operating from a space of consciousness, and we're still going to be accountable for our behavior. So that's where the accountability comes in. We have a responsibility to understand ourselves emotionally, so that we can behave in the appropriate way to other people, so that on the day of judgment, we're not going to be held to account. We're not going to be handing over all of our good deeds to other people because we harmed them.
Yes, I couldn't disagree with anything you said, and I like how you dragging different aspects of our existence as playing roles in this life, into self-centeredness, to kindness, to compassion, to empathy, to seeing another person, even your child. It's so difficult to see in your child a soul, isn't it? Because of that burden of responsibility and that rush that we are living in. But somehow you manage to come to accountability, to remind the parents. There'll be a day of judgment, and if you don't understand yourself, if you don't understand how you're oppressing yourself, how you're oppressing your own nafs, your own soul, therefore how can you help that child? That child is hitting for the reason. How can you reach out to this child if you don't even know how to reach out to yourself? So in the simple words, how can you give away something that you don't have, meaning the self-awareness?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing, just so let's take it to a different relationship. Let's take it to marriages. There's a lot of marriages struggling out there. Absolutely. And I have worked with a number of women now who at the time were on the brink of divorce because of the way their husband was behaving. And when they came to understand what we've been teaching and mentoring them, things shifted for them, and they started showing up differently in that relationship. And then he started showing up differently in the relationship. And some have actually said that their relationship is better than they've ever known it. Like they didn't ever know it to be this good. Others have said it's like it was at the beginning. And what that says, or what that demonstrates, is how much of a role we're playing in it. We look at it and we go, it's broken. They're broken. They're not behaving in the way they should be. I'm not getting my rights, or I'm not getting this. And we get so caught up in this story, we don't realize that, in fact, we're playing a role in that. And this is where the accountability comes in. We can't fix or change another person. All we can do is work on ourselves. But if we do that and we show up differently in our relationships in a better way, it's really quite profound how those relationships can shift and change, and how others can be inspired to change as well. And that's another area where the accountability comes into it, just through what we've witnessed, that the difference in the other people because we changed. Yeah. So it wasn't wasn't all them. It looked like it was, but it wasn't.
I love that you actually speak about it openly. I love that. I so appreciate that. And I can't help myself but emphasize this point. So in my private practice as a psychotherapist, I have women coming one after another, and I love all my clients, whoever is watching me there, I love you all, who have exactly the same perspective. It is all my husband's fault. It is all my family-in-law fault. I don't know what else to do. I am at the end of my feathers. So, you know, to bring alive those verses, those beautiful verses in Quran, meaning, I don't know, God will not change your condition until you change yourself, or human being will have nothing except what they worked for. It is quite a long journey, but nevertheless, if I will not bring the aspect of muhasaba, of taking yourself into accountability, and then another aspect which I haven't yet spoken about, which is tazkiyah, purification of your heart, being true to your nature, which includes fitra as well. This vision of the world is against me can never shift for them. So in the end of the day, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that it is all going back to yourself. It is all reflecting on how you might affect others. You know, others are reacting to you. They're not only acting towards you. There's that effect of mirroring in any relationship. And those relationships actually are there to mirror you, to make you contemplate. You know, this Quran is for people who can contemplate. Why we don't understand those simple yet very profound ayats in the Quran?
I know. The more I understand this, or the clearer my mind is from all the chatter, the deeper you can see those verses. You know, the deeper you see how they play a role in our life. And there's the other thing about relationships is, when we've been in a relationship for a long time, it's almost like we've got these set sort of behavior patterns where, you know, one will respond this way, this is how and it goes back and forth, and we're in like this autopilot relationship. What happens when one person changes is there's no longer this locked in pattern anymore, because if you show up differently, the other one has to go, okay, respond differently. They can't be in autopilot anymore because you showed up differently in the relationship. So it makes a lot of so it makes a lot of sense how it can take one person to bring the relationship back on track. And the other side of it is, there are some relationships that aren't okay, and let's you know, and that's another topic I'm passionate about, is where we're talking about abuse. And a lot of women
actually talking about it, because one is connected to another in our not only in our community, but especially in Orthodox community like ours. We need to learn where enough is enough, isn't it? So I'm sorry, I just want to praise the bravery of yours that you're actually mentioning the other side of it, when actually some things are unacceptable.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are happening that are unacceptable. And so, you know, sometimes the question I will ask clients is, you know, has it always been like this? Because that can be a little bit of a sign that there's a problem, you know, there's a deeper problem. But a lot of the time you'll find in just general relationships, once upon a time it was all good and now it's off track, which means that it's just a matter of let's get it back on track. But when we talk about abusive relationships, we often find that the people are also locked in like this. And it comes from basically the things that we've been through in our childhood. And it can be a little bit like when you've got a north pole and a south pole of a magnet. You've got the victim and the oppressor. They become so, attracted to one another because they each fulfill the pattern of each other. And so it can be so very confusing, because if you're the victim, well, neither is happy, by the way, and both have been hurt first, because to be either, you've been a hurt person yourself. And so hurt people, and sometimes even those who are a victim also become an oppressor as well. It's very complicated. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be that way, and we can take charge of things ourselves by understanding ourselves and understanding what's going on. I had to do that when I came out of the abusive marriage I was in. I had to understand that emotional blackmail couldn't have existed in that marriage without my participation in it, that I participated in it in order for it to exist. Because now, because I know emotional blackmail, it's like someone's waving a red flag. It doesn't fool me at all anymore. That's no longer an issue for me. Those people won't come near me because they know it's not going to work.
That's it. Absolutely. And it's, yeah, they know, because you're putting out there something called barriers, something called boundaries, something called self-respect. You know how to respect yourself, and you are just not interested in wasting your energy on people who don't, right?
Well, it's because the way it works is emotional blackmail starts with something really, really, really small. It's like something where you won't say no because it seems really petty to say no, but it'll be asked for in a way that is emotional blackmail, and then it grows like a cancer. It just grows and grows and grows. The thing with me now is anybody speaks in a way that has any kind of oppressive language in it, it's kind of like nah. So they don't even get past that first little test. It was like nah.
No,
but I couldn't do that before. I could not say no before. I was actually your perfect victim before. And I got to the point where emotionally I had completely shut down because it was way too hard to feel. I had just completely shut down. I was a walking zombie. Physically, my doctor actually said to me, who's going to look after your kids if you die? She was that worried about my physical well-being. And spiritually, I was just hanging by a thread. And that was the thread that just held me enough strength to make dua to Allah to find a way out. That's where it ends up when you're a victim. You get to the point where everything gives up on you. You give up on yourself emotionally, but then your body starts giving up too. It's been 17 years since I left that marriage, and yet my adrenals are still got chronic adrenal fatigue. So it affects you physiologically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you're mentioning it, because sometimes we can't recognize that something is going wrong in us by the spirit or by the emotions, because we suppress them so well. Therefore, our bodies, our cells in our body, they're so tired of holding up it for us, and they're throwing it back at us, and they say, okay, so deal with this back pain, or deal with this kidney failure, or deal with this breast cancer. I'm sorry, I'm not exaggerating. I've just seen quite a lot of case studies when this pattern actually happened. So we are interconnected, isn't it?
Absolutely. This year for me has been about finally looking after my body, because I've been on this massive journey, emotionally and spiritually. And so I've been seeing a naturopath, and she did these whole lot of tests and everything on me. And one of the things I discovered was, firstly, that my body needs a lot of attention. Her words were, "You've got a lot of things going on." But the second thing she said was, given all that's going on, your actual overall health rating is really good. So I came out of that meeting, number one, feeling accountable now for my physical health, because I now felt like I know what's going on. I'm now accountable to do something about this. But secondly, so grateful to Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I just feel like my life was this boot camp that he was setting me up for to do this work, and that he gave me the body that was going to be able to manage being neglected this long through this process. Because other people, by the time they've reached where I've reached, probably would have had some kind of serious illness. But he's protected me from that, because I just feel like that was just part of what was written, that he gave me this strong body to cope with everything to get me here. But now I have to look after it. So I have to be accountable for it.
Yes. And that point where you ended up took you some time, I assume. And I think you don't have to be in an oppressive relationship, because oppression to yourself can happen in all different forms. Like some people, they concentrate too much on work, they're becoming workaholics. Or some people, they develop passion for being a mother or a husband, and then they overdo it as well, right? And so forth. But in the end of the day, your body, your soul, your emotions, your physical body will say to you, you know what, we're not balanced here. And if anything, going back to prophetic medicine, it was all about balance, wasn't it? And you find so many beautiful hadiths reinforcing this idea. You know, for every disease there is cure. Okay, so fantastic. Where is it? Well, don't ask me. Go and find it. And the tragedy of today's society, to my opinion, to my very critical opinion, is that what we do is we sort of give away this responsibility away to professionals, call them doctors, call them shamans, call them ruqya practitioners, call them solicitors, call them this or the other. And that deprives us of our humanity, and that it has a huge implication of how we look after ourselves, how much detached or completely departed we are from ourself, from our true self. So probably in your academy, it will be how much departed you are from your fitra, right?
Yeah. And what I learned recently, because it is all still about wellness and everything, is how corrupted I've been learning about this for a long time, but it was highlighted a lot by all the things that I've been told not to eat, but how corrupted our food has become. And it gave me this new thought around where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, eat what is tayyib. He didn't say eat what is halal, because we could have halal food, but it's not tayyib. And the thing is, because I had the certain ingredients I'm not allowed to eat now, I went to the supermarket. Guess what? There is just about nothing I can buy on the shelves other than the meat. And it has to be the meat that hasn't been mixed with anything. It has to be just plain meat, plain vegetables. That's about it. Everything else, when I read the labels, has got something in there that she's asked me to avoid because my body is needing to be avoiding it, like sugar and gluten and lactose and like a whole lot of things that my body is reacting to now.
Yeah, and then you the more you study about those intricacies of what's going on the food markets right now, criminal for the market, I completely agree with you, is you realize that sugar has a different names to it, right? It just, it has synonyms, so you don't even notice. So yeah, it's difficult to stay away from processed food by all means, yet it is possible to go back to basics, but it takes, first of all, understanding that it is your responsibility. No, there's no magic pill that can reverse for you years of self-neglect. This idea is false. It's invalid. It's just a fantasy, and I'm sorry, but it is your procrastination, your personal procrastination, and refusal of idea that actually I'm having a manna here. I'm having a huge blessing, and I need to holistically look after jism, body, soul, including fitra, including nafs, and so forth, so forth. It's a difficult stage to get into, yet so necessary for you to complete that journey of humanity.
Yeah, and it just shows that we've got to look at all the different angles. So when you only focus on one area, it's not balanced, is it? So it goes back to that balance. And when it comes to accountability, it was really interesting. It was only about 10 days ago. I was driving in the car, and I don't know why, but I just visualized my body. It was all shrouded, being put into the grave. And I just had this moment of realization, hang on a minute, this body isn't me, my soul is me. This body is the vehicle that Allah has given me to travel this life in. I better look after it, because just like you look after your car, you put oil and petrol and everything in it and get it serviced to make sure it keeps going. If we don't do that to our body, it's not going to get us through what we need to in this life. And I've sort of have a few things I'd like to do if Allah wills. So
Yeah.
it actually, that vision actually made me more accountable for the physical side of me, even though I'd already started taking my journey even earlier this year on that. It just took me to the next level again.
It's a beautiful tip, actually. It's been practiced by pious predecessors. Actually, they literally showed it themselves, and they've put them safe in the grave. Visualization, as a fact, visualization without physically putting yourself in the grave or whatever you choose to do, to awaken your soul, or accountability. Visualization, actually, in Quran is one of the tools. I call them therapeutic Islamic tools. Which is used over and over again. Why do we have stories of prophets wave through different surahs of Quran? Why do we have different parables? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears on simple things like moon or stars? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not shying away from giving example of a mosquito in Quran, right? This is all there for us to use our imagination, this left-right brain balance it needs to be maintained as well. So I'm so grateful that you gave away this tip to our listeners. And just to wrap up, because I know you're a very busy lady, I wanted to emphasize what are those benefits that you observe in your work with clients and maybe practitioners. What are those benefits of taking yourself into self-accountability for your wellness? What can you expect?
So I guess where I work is in the emotional department. So I'll focus there on this question, and emotional wellness, emotional well-being. When you take account of that, when you make yourself responsible for your own happiness, when you make yourself responsible for your own anger, when you make yourself responsible for all of your own feelings, then you stop projecting them onto others. So you stop harming others. And what my clients tend to discover is that the chaos doesn't go away, but they just navigate it in a very calm and confident way, that they have a lot of compassion for the people in the chaos around them. They're better able to see what those people need, and they just don't seem to get caught into the chaos anymore. So one of the misconceptions is that we have to suffer through the tests that Allah sends us. It's not true. There's nothing that said that the tests have to be a state of suffering. So what happens is we navigate the tests without the suffering. And that's a beautiful way to exist, because we're always going to be tested. We're always going to be challenged. We're going to be faced with hard things. In fact, what we've discovered by becoming more emotionally resilient is we can handle more, which means that Allah can burden us with more, right? So the tests sometimes actually...
There's always opting up, isn't it, for us?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
No, don't worry. There's another stage for you. Let me just show you.
Yeah, you just think you got it all. That's it. That's got to be the end of the test, and another whopper will come along. But the thing is, we don't suffer through those tests anymore. And there's a lot of clarity over how we see Allah wants us to show up through that test. And as a result, the people around us are also calmer, because we become that rock, or that calm in the storm that everybody else can hang on to.
That's so beautiful. So in a sense, through this journey of awakening yourself accountability for your wellness, taking responsibility for your emotions, because by the way, all the listeners out there, nobody can make you angry, nobody can make you sad. It's all right. Always there all this time. It's just a build-up, by the way, just a reminder, just an excuse for your body to say, yeah, have it. So no one can actually do it for you. So after the stage of taking yourself into self-accountability, looking in the mirror, oh my God, this is what's going on, it's quite ugly. You take actions. And then when you are quite gathered yourself, you can influence others. You interact with them differently. You're breaking the system, abuse, oppression of being not present, and everything around you change only because of, let's go back to Quran, Allah will not change your position until you change yourself, your nafs. How beautiful is that?
It's very beautiful. And there's one more verse to add that we can end on is, you know how we say with difficulty comes ease? Most of the time we think that we're waiting for the ease to come after the difficulty. What we've come to experience is that we have ease with the difficulty. That's what I mean by the not suffering the tests. I have experienced peaceful grief or peaceful sadness. I've experienced peaceful anger. It's really quite profound. You don't think of anger as a peaceful emotion, but you can have peaceful anger.
Yeah,
and it's so that
if you own it, then and you know what to do with, like you've learned how to navigate those things, then it is possible. But again, it's another stage of your self-development, isn't it, Sister Kathleen?
Yeah, but it starts with understanding that you are responsible for your feelings, no one else is.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful ending, but it's not the end, because Sister Kathleen, she's got absolutely amazing, mind-blowing and life-changing free gift for all of us. And I don't want to spoil it, so I'm going to leave it in your hands. What's going to happen soon, Sister Kathleen?
So on the 25th, 26th for me, so it's probably the 24th for people in the UK and the US, because you're a bit behind us. So we start Saturday morning here in Australia. We are doing the Back to the Fitra online conference. We're having 12 really powerful talks, which are done by my coaches and mentors that have been certified through the Back to the Fitra Academy, talking about topics like I'm not good enough, divorce can be a new beginning, life after panic attacks, just trying to think of them all.
They absolutely
everything. Then we've got 8 interviews with the 8 of the sisters. I've got 14 sisters going through this year for the certification. 8 of them volunteered to come on and be interviewed. So they're going to talk about their experience, how things have changed for them. And then we've got 3 pretty controversial panel discussions. One where we're going to be talking about child sexual abuse. Another one we're going to be talking about addiction, and we might be talking about some things you hadn't thought of in that one. And we're also going to be talking about ending domestic abuse, or how we can as an ummah end domestic abuse. And all of the people on the panel discussions have a lot of experience in these areas. So we're going to actually start sweeping stuff out from under the carpet.
Yes. Brilliant.
And it's free. And it's free.
I know, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
It's free to attend live. So it's a live conference. So just like if you went to a in-person conference at a conference center or event center or something, you'd spend 2 days at the conference going between all the different talks. We're just doing an online version of that. So it's 2 days that are jam-packed full. In fact, so it's 24 sessions over 2 days. So it's nearly 24 hours worth, actually. And yeah, so good luck to me getting through that. But so there is a small investment if people want to get the recordings, if they can't attend all of them, of just $29. So it's free to attend live, but if you want the recordings, it's $29, which is not very much if you consider the amount of content that's going to be in there. We're not just fluffing around. We will all be teaching something really valuable in each of the talks on the topics that are being taught. We've been preparing this for months, so everybody's all very ready to go. So backtothefitraconference.com is the link to register.
Don't worry, all the viewers here. I don't see you asking questions yet. I don't know why. Maybe you're blown away by the amount of wisdom, ilm being passed away. I'm leaving you to it. But all the viewers in our Sunnah Wellness group, please remember that Sister Kathleen Jones is actually a member of this group. So underneath this video, this webinar, this recording, if you're reviewing, you are welcome to ask questions. Me and Sister Kathleen, whenever we're ready, we will get notification and we will we will try to attend to your needs, inshallah. But also, Sister Catherine, would you be kind enough to post us your links, your invitations, both to your website as well, to your academy, as well as to this fantastic new event coming on 25th?
I will, inshallah. And if somebody specifically wants to ask me a question, if they could tag me in it, because I actually, at the moment, with all the advertising we're doing for the conference, I'm getting a lot of messages. So if I'm not tagged, I won't see it probably.
Yeah, so how to tag? You need to put before Sister Catherine names and surname. You have to put the sign of A, like you're using. I don't know how to call it professionally. I'm so bad.
It's the at sign.
Yes. So, and then Facebook automatically will tag Sister Catherine, and she will know that there's something for her to attend. All right, so it's quite easy, quite straightforward. Sister Catherine, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the whole enterprise easy for you, and the next event, the upcoming event, more than successful, more than beneficial. May it be of the benefit for you and the speakers on the Day of Judgment. I hope it's not the last time when you're here. It was absolutely lovely hosting you. If I've spoken too much, I told you in the beginning, please forgive me.
It's okay. I do the same thing.
Great. Thank you for understanding. And I'm going to let you go now, respectfully let you go, because I know you are a very busy lady. Thank you so much. And salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I really tired you. Okay, salam alaikum until next time. Salam alaikum.